Hello everyone, my name is Monster Review Girl, and welcome to my video on how mana and magic function following the ascension of the current Demon Lord. Remember how in my lore video I mentioned magic being thick on the ground? Well, that is still true. Magic and people who can use it are fairly common. Even more common, though, is the energy that fuels it. Spirit energy, which is most of the time translated as mana, suffuses all living things, concentrating in sentient beings. Angels and elves and other non-humans produce more than the average human, who in turn produce more than the average animal, than the average plant, so on and so forth. Spirit energy is not a special energy for using magic. A better translation would have been life force or life energy. As a result, creatures that cannot use magic can still use mana. Slimes, forgive me for saying this, perhaps the dumbest monster on the face of the planet, can still use mana. In fact, mana usage is how they get around because their bodies are like 75–80% mana. Werewolves are bad at magic due to being beastmen, but can use magic instinctively to augment their physical capabilities, with it being believed that other beastmen could perform such feats, it just has not been documented. Ability to use magic appears to be more shaped by practice and a small amount of innate talent, not some sort of nebulous unknown factor, like most fantasies where being able to use magic requires access to mana reserves. If your mana reserves are 0 or you cannot access them, you are dead. Full stop. Speaking of accessing mana, human mana is a staple of the monster diet. While I can't discuss how monsters feed nowadays, I assure you it is non-fatal to humans, which is a massive improvement over what it once was. Monsters can get a lot of information from a man's mana, or even a woman's. Whether a person is human or monster, sometimes they can even sniff out an individual from the crowd, and if the monster's mana sensing capability is sharp enough, which it generally is, it can even sense an individual's relationship status and even what species that partner is. This is enormously helpful for a monster on the hunt for a husband, as they will not go after a man who has already been claimed, be they by a human or by a monster. Once a monster claims a husband, his mana will be the only one she wants anything to do with. The mana of others will taste disgusting and she will avoid it. The mana monsters generate themselves instead of what they take in from their husbands has a unique property. It binds with other mana and converts it into monster mana. If a woman, be she human, non-human, spirit, whatever, so long as it's a girl, is bombarded with enough monster mana, her innate mana production will become tainted and she will transform into a monster. This process, called monsterification, gets its own video due to how complex the process is. Monster mana, it seems, can imbue literally anything. Plants, animals, land, water, air, even swords, armor, and magic items can become imbued with mana. When a land becomes imbued with monster mana, it becomes a demon realm. Demon realms come in two distinct flavors. Bright green demon realms, which tend to be peaceful pastoral countryside where the only cue something's not quite right would be the monsters everywhere. Monsters living in bright green demon realms tend to be very placid and calm, not having an aggressive bone in their bodies and preferring to just happily live out their lives with their husbands. Dark demon realms, on the other hand, are very dark and dismal looking places, hence the name. Monsters that live in dark demon realms tend to be very aggressive. Monster mana is strongly drawn to emotion and intention, particularly those of a romantic nature. It seems to become aggressive in its attempts to erode the mana of women whose hearts and minds are filled with desire, love, attachment, or complex entanglements of the three. Basically, if you're stuck pining for a guy or anything like that, demon mana is going to have an easier time getting to you and affecting you. As a result, it's said that some individuals who become monsters do so because they were meant to, or so superstition holds. People who believe such superstitions are said to compare people who are transformed that fit their criteria the same as people who were born monsters. This factor not only affects humans, but can also occur in animals, cats and dogs mostly, plants, and even non-living things, transforming them into monsters as well. Under certain rare circumstances, monster mana can even coalesce and form into its own being. Monster mana seems to behave less like energy and more like a virus. It disobeys the law of conservation of energy, creating more of itself wherever it goes, and spreads from person to person. It acts less like energy and more like a virus. That's all there is to it. People who are most sensitive to mana corruption are spellcasters. Men and women, when they are spellcasters, produce and handle mana very differently. Men excel at producing mana internally, but those are the only reserves they have, while women excel at manipulating both their internal mana and external mana that comes from their surroundings. While this puts them at risk for monsterification should they find themselves trapped in a demon realm, this means they end up becoming more powerful casters than men who can last longer in a spellcasting fight, especially if they're casters who draw power from the gods or from a compact with an elemental. Men, while also capable of becoming perfectly talented mages, they tend to be better at using their mana to augment physical capability. This, however, can't always be fully understood since men tend to have higher baseline reserves, and most people go, "Oh, higher reserves? You must be a very powerful mage." Aptitude, however, can vary from person to person, so take what I just said with a huge grain of salt. Running low on mana tends to result in symptoms akin to hunger and fatigue. Nothing dinner and a nap won't fix, though. Now, you'll notice that when I was talking about women being vulnerable to being transformed into monsters, I didn't mention men at all. That's because most of the time, men cannot be turned into monsters, barring extenuating circumstances. They become a creature called an incubus when introduced to demon mana. Incubi, according to Sabbath researchers, behave very similarly to heroes, in that both of them are humans who have surpassed limits set upon them by the gods due to energy supplied to them by an outside source. It is unknown if the Order has come to this conclusion as well and then summarily burned their notes because denial ain't just a river in Egypt, and they'd probably rather go ignorant than admit they have anything in common with monsters. The Order will get its own rant further on down the line. But yeah, that's been my overview on mana and magic. Our next episode is probably going to be on the 11 different ways a human being can become a monster, with one in particular being exclusive to men on the LGBT spectrum. This has been a Monster Review Girl video. Enjoy your evening or morning or whatever it is where you are. Like if you've enjoyed this video, and send me a subscribe if you want to see more. This is Monster Review Girl, signing off.